All right, everybody. So today we actually had a plan to interview an author who is known as Peter E. Carter. Unfortunately, though, the community is grieving because he recently passed away.
Yeah, I know.
Very sad news, but we are so honored today because we actually have his daughter here with us.
Yes.
We have Dr. Elizabeth Carter here on the CoastLife couch. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and Dad truly appreciates it also.
Of course.
Yes.
Well, we're so sorry for your loss, but we think it's incredible. You're keeping his memory alive.
Yes, it's been phenomenal. It's so interesting that you learn more about a person in death than you did in life, and just the outpouring of people that he touched over his 79 years on his life. People still calling. I have his cell phone, and people still don't know, so they're calling to say hi. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry to tell you he passed away in May. But it's just been a great journey. His life was phenomenal. He lived it to the fullest, and I'm so proud to continue his legacy with the name and everything that he worked for. I'm continuing to do in his absence.
That's awesome.
That's great. Well, I'm sure he's very proud of you. He's looking down, very proud of you. So first, we're going to talk just about who your dad was, if that's okay. He was, of course, an author, but so much more than that. What do you want people to know about him?
He was an educator. It's interesting, in his first book, I learned more about him in his books than I ever learned when he never told any real stories about his life, but he was an educator. He loved children. And his mother was kind of upset when he said he wanted to be a teacher because she wanted him to be a doctor. Because coming from Trinidad in the Caribbean, that's kind of the American dream. Come to America, become a doctor or a lawyer. And when he told her he didn't want to be a doctor, he wanted to be a teacher, she said, ugh. But that was his passion, and he was so good at it. He taught in New Jersey, moved his way up from a teacher to an administrator to running school districts, reviving school districts, and he loved to be able to lend his lens of intellect and passion and love of children to break through tons of barriers of racism. Quite often he was the only or the first, similar to his book, a first in many venues as an African-American male in educational settings at the leadership level, where he was calling the shots, hurting feelings, but always for the children.
And
so
to
it's
make a
been
difference.
phenomenal. Absolutely, and he has done so well.
Yeah. I think it's so, I think, interesting too that sometimes, you think of your parents as mom and dad, and then to learn this whole life that they've lived, not as mom and dad, but as a member of the community. I think that's it's really fascinating, and obviously his work has been so important and just amazing to see.
Yeah, at the funeral there was so many people who came because some of them are now in their 60s, and they did their best to come. I live streamed the event for those who couldn't, but just so many stories, and there, again, just the warmth that people that came out just to say, I loved your father, he touched me, he made me who I am today. It was just phenomenal.
Definitely.
Beautiful.
Before we jump into his books, I did hear one little thing. Your dad turned down the Beatles one time?
Yes.
I just want to hear that story really
so
quick.
that's in the book, because he never told me that. Apparently, he was part of, at college, the event committee, and he had several different groups. He said he had Ray Charles come on, a couple of other groups, and they brought to him this group from England, and they were called the Beatles. He's like, the Beatles? That name will never work, apparently. And lo and behold, he said, no, I don't want them performing at the school. And here they, now legends. So it's so funny. I never realized that till the book, but he has tons of Beatles paraphernalia in the house. So it's kind of this sense of, oh my God, the biggest mistake of my life. I must make up for it. So there's Beatles everywhere in the house. Photos, albums, you got a Beatles watch. So he's a fan because of that mistake.
That's
awesome.
incredible.
He went on to be the biggest Beatles fan.
But you could kind of switch it up. You could be like, instead of, I turned down the Beatles, you could be like, I turned down the Beatles.
True.
You could get this cool. Right. Well, what a fun life. And so people are going to want to hear about this and hear his stories.
Yes.
How can they do that? When? Let us know about that.
Right. So he's got 2 books, and it was funny when I was helping him clean his basement a few years way before COVID. I said, you've got tons of great information around articles, things he did in the schools. I said, you need to write your book. Nah, I don't have that kind of time. I said, all right. COVID came. Plenty of time to sit down and write your memoirs. So his first book was called The Black First. It was his life coming from Trinidad when he was 2 till he retired at age 60 in 2004. tons of great stories about his upbringing. His mother was so influential in his life. And when we think about mothers and their sons, that really shapes our men in the world. And he's been such a very caring individual, and it came from his mother. And you see that throughout this particular book. The second book, called A Black First, The Blackness Continues, was his life from retirement, moving here to the Lewis area, and his work in a consulting capacity for many school districts, again, advocating for children and their rights to have equitable education, which is still a challenge in many school districts. So these are both at the Browse About Books.
Okay.
Also on Amazon, not to compete with the bookstore. We are doing a book signing on October 7th at Browsabouts from 11 to 1. I will be signing on his behalf and selling the book. Would love to have the entire CoastLife area come out and support, say hello, share some words if you met my dad or interacted with my dad, even those who didn't like him. I want to hear about that too, because he loved making waves with people. But it's always in great fun, and we all learn, and opportunities around challenges and, being opposites.
That's
So
right.
we're doing.
Did you want to talk about that third book you have?
This is my book.
Ooh, let's just real quick give it a little shout out.
So how he became an author was because I am a 7-time author.
Okay,
I've been in anthologies. I have 2 of my own published books. And what I loved about his life is that he was always about educating and empowering others, especially those who were the underdog, underrepresented, hidden behind the scenes. And I similarly have that in my life as a person working in corporate America. I'm a corporate executive, African-American female, tons of challenges, probably not as bad as his, coming up in the 60s and 70s in the same vein. But I just recently published my own book anthology called Letters to My Corporate Sisters, stories of endurance, elevation, and encouragement, where myself and 10 other women share their story about their struggles in corporate. But to say, we have persevered, we have been able to overcome, now we want to step back and help the next set of leaders. Same as my dad was doing for other educators. These books will help many individuals who want to be a teacher, struggling, don't know what to do. So these are all really empowering books for those who know their passion, but just are having trouble seeing the success factor.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Well, you and your dad are so impressive.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, for telling us about both those books. Just remind people really quick before we let you go where that book signing is and when.
Browse About Books down in Rehoboth Beach, Saturday, October the 7th from 11 to 1 p.m. Looking forward to seeing you.
Well, you can't lose. I mean, talking to you, getting the book signed is just going to be a blast.
I know, I'm so excited.
Yes,
Dr. Carter, thank you
so much.
Thank you so much for being here. We can't wait,
Appreciate
and we're
it.
looking forward to October 7th. And we're also looking forward to more CoastLife that's coming your way, so stay tuned.